I want to talk today about my thoughts of Jimmy Carter. First, excuse me, let me bring this back. I'm Darrell J. Bennett. I want to say wonderful morning, happy new year to all of you that are listening, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Uh, I have something on my heart I want to share today. I want to talk today about my reflection on Jimmy Carter's life. This is not a political message, by the way. This is not a political message. You know, there are moments and times where we all take a pause to think about life, someone's life, mortality, oftentimes our own mortality. And when people pass on, it gives us that pause, especially when there are public people. And the send off that you saw that Jimmy Carter received as the elder statesman in America was a send off that had little to do with, what you may have thought about someone politically. It was really to honor his place in American history. And I think that these funerals or these moments in time where we bury leaders are interesting because it causes us to think about our own mortality. And it's something that really struck me at all the ceremonies that I saw of Jimmy Carter. One thing could not be said, and that is gone too soon. Here was a man. This is what I drew inspiration about. Here is a man who lived 100 years on earth and did what he set out to do. If that's not success, I don't know what is. Do you know the meaning of your life? I mean, the truth of the matter is when we go to funerals, we might be looking at the person that's in that casket, but we're thinking about our own selves. And I think that Jimmy Carter's funeral gives us a chance to pause and ask ourselves, are we living for the right things? Are we living for the right things? I have a lot of conversations. I'm actually sharing this on my LinkedIn today because I find that I have a lot of conversations with people who are doing things professionally. It's not aligned with their purpose, and they're frustrated and they're angry and they're living below their means because they didn't step into purpose. I'm not upset with profit. I want you to think about profit, but I want you to think about purpose first. I want you to think about purpose first. I want you to think about purpose first. I want you to think that there is a reason why you're here. I want to ask you, what is your soul's signature? I want to ask you, what is your life's calling? I want to ask you, what have you been predestined to do? Can you imagine a life of 100 years? I just thought it was neat seeing the pictures. Seeing the pictures of this man as a teenager, seeing the pictures of him as a boy, seeing the pictures of him in his 30s, seeing the pictures of him in his 40s, seeing the pictures of him in his 50s, seeing the pictures of him in his 60s. I mean, I'm just 70s, 80s, 90s, a full life, a full life. Whatever you think of the presidency of Jimmy Carter, this isn't about that. The question is, will you have lived a full life when they put you in the ground? Will it be said, I lived? That's what I'm here to talk about today. Are you living or are you just existing? I lived. I lived. I lived. What's that Leanne Womack song? I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I thought it was a wonderful thing to watch all of the people giving him praise, eulogizing him at his death. And the interesting thing, I thought it was interesting at least, to see that it was sons and grandsons of his rivals that stood up to eulogize him because he outlived the trouble. Can I talk about that? Can I talk about sometimes success is about outliving what's trying to outlive you? It's a beauty in that. It's a beauty. See. It's a beauty in being able to look over the horizon of your life and see that there's been seasons. There's a beauty in seasons. There's a beauty in seasons, and and there's a beauty. There's a beauty in every stage in life. One of the things his grandson said that I just thought was really interesting. He said, yeah, he was a governor for 4 years and he was president for 4 years, but the other 92 years they were at home. Have you lived a full life? I know you got a great career. I'm not against your career. I think it's wonderful to have a wonderful career, and you got your mind set on the revenue goals that you want to hit and all of that, and that's nice. I'm raising the conversation a little bit. Barack Obama said that it's a certain poverty of spirit that only sees a dollar sign. It's a certain poverty of spirit to not see that I'm called for a purpose. It's a poverty of spirit to not realize that I've been destined for such a time as this. It's a poverty in spirit to not realize that I didn't just go to that school I was sent. It was a God whisper that put me in that seat, that gave me the education, that gave me the knowledge. What am I doing with what I was given? What are you doing with the time? I guess that's what I'm asking you this morning. What are you doing with the time? Huh? What are you doing with what you have? I'm always talking to people that tell me what they would do if they had something else. I'm not talking about what you would do if you had. You got to start where you are. You can't start where you're not. I'm gonna go, but I feel this. I'm telling you, I feel the Holy Spirit of God tugging on me to tell you this. And you lean into me, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You lean into me on it. You lean into me and hear me on this YouTube. I don't care what you're going through now. It won't always be how it is now. That's the story of a life that's weathered many storms. That's the story. You weeping may endure for the night. Let me tell you how we say it in the scriptures. But joy is going to come in the morning. It's not over yet. It's not the end. I find myself in spaces and places. I need to talk for a second where I mentor a lot of younger folks. I was talking to somebody recently. He's 25 and he said, I feel like my life is over because I can't seem to get a grip on things. I said, you're 25. I speak against every spirit of hopelessness that got you quitting in your 30s, told you at 50 you're done for. The devil is a liar. You've been called for greatness. You've been called for purpose. You've been called for power. You've been called for destiny. You've been called for a reason. What are you going to do with the time? I speak against every voice that would try to keep you up in the night, that would have you believe your life is over. If you have breath, you have hope, you have a reason. There's something in you. And this is my final part, and I'm going to sit down. Well, I'm already sitting, but you get what I mean. I'm going to be done. Do not die with the music in you. As I'm watching the tributes to this man, 100 years old, I'm like, one thing you gotta admit, no matter where you stand and whether you like him personally or not, it doesn't matter. You gotta admit, he didn't die with the music in him. He didn't die with, if I only had a few more years, if I only had some more time. What are you doing with what you've been given? Are you living a full life? Are you living a full life? Are you living a full life? I have come, the master wrote. The master said, others wrote, that you might have life, and you might have life to the fullest. Don't you want a full life? Don't you want a life full of memories? Don't you want a life full of impact? Don't you want a life full of having touched lives? Don't you want a life? I was just talking to somebody recently that said, Darrell, the next career move I make, I'm already doing $500,000 a year. It's not about money. I want purpose in my next career iteration. That's what he said. I want purpose. I want purpose. I want purpose. I want purpose. And I believe that part of the hiring issue that we're seeing across America play out, part of the hiring crises, it's happening because people are struggling with purpose. You think it's a job market issue. It's deeper. It's not a job market issue. It's a spiritual thing. I'm telling you, people sat at home for 2 years and they started thinking about, what the hell am I doing? Seriously, they thought about this. What am I doing with my life? And the time is ticking away and your whole life has become 15-minute Zoom calls. When are you going to get to purpose? Let me tell you something about Darrell J. Bennett. You can say what you want about Darrell J. Bennett. Darrell J. Bennett lives in purpose. Period. 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 Darrell J. Bennett has been touching lives since I was a teenager. Darrell J. Bennett wrote his first book at 18 years old. Darrell J. Bennett has gone to nations all over this world sharing the message of good news and hope. I refuse to die with the music in me. And as I sat there watching this man, I said, wow, I'm 39. He's 100. What if God would have granted me another 61 years? What if God would have granted me another 61 years to inspire people, to minister to people, to motivate people, to touch people, to educate people? Imagine that. Imagine that. Hold on, I'm about to get off, but I'm gonna just speak it for a second. And see me in my 40s touching people. See me in my 50s touching people. See me in my 60s speaking to the world. I'm telling you, I see me at 80 years old still. So if I was born in 85, that means I'll be 80, God willing, in 2055. 2055, I see me talking the goodness of Jesus. I see me at 90 years old, 90. At a podium, crowds speaking the goodness of God. I'm telling you, in every season, I gotta get off. But this is a scripture it's bubbling in my spirit, and it's giving me some. It's just bubbling up, and I gotta share it. It says it's in Ecclesiastes that God will make everything beautiful in its time. If it's not beautiful, that means it's not your time. I need to encourage somebody because you're looking at the outer circumstance, and I'm trying to get you to get tethered to an inner conditioning. It's an inner conditioning. I'm telling you, we don't stand on what we feel, we stand on what we know. And what we know is that God has destined us with purpose. What we know is that we were conceived in the mind of the divine before we were conceived in the belly of our mommy. What we know is that there's purpose and that there's a hand guiding us. And so I want to ask you, as I think over my life, and I think about what my 40s will be like, in my 50s, and my 60s, in my 70s. I think of Maya Angelou, who told Oprah, apparently, she said the 60s were nice, but my 70s though. And they said, but the 80s. Yeah. God will make everything beautiful in its time. You need to hear that. That needs to be a message you just carry with you in 2025. In its time, he'll make it beautiful. In its time, he'll make it. It might suffer for a while. It might struggle for a while. It might be overlooked for a while. It might be ostracized for a while. But in its time, God will make everything beautiful. I want to speak a blessing over your life. I know I don't think I've ever spoken a blessing over your life on LinkedIn. I know I've done it on YouTube. I know I've done it on Facebook. But I'm going to speak a blessing over your life in LinkedIn. This is the blessing. The blessing is that God will enhance, accelerate, and exponentially increase the trajectory of your career. That's the blessing I'm going to speak over your life. That as you align your professional career with God's divine calling for your life, that everything's going to move in an ease. You've been efforting, but I'm going to speak a word of ease over your life in 2025. See, the king wrote that goodness and mercy will follow me. Yeah, all the days of my life. I ain't got to run after it. I ain't got to manipulate things for it. I ain't got to try to sleep with nobody to get it. I ain't got to calculate, strategize, glad hand. I don't got to politic. I don't have to do none of that because it's going to follow me. Because favor is going to follow me. I speak over your life ease. I speak over your life rivers of living waters that's going to come out of you. I speak in your life a revival, a spiritual revival of your secular career. I speak over your life an alignment of strengths, of skills, of passions. I speak over your life clarity of purpose. I'm telling you, that's what you need. That's going to shift it for you. That's going to shift. You're snapping at your coworkers and you're mad at senior staff and you're angry at the leadership team. And I'm trying to tell you it's because you're not moving in purpose. It's not about them. It's not about them. Stop arguing with your cat. Stop getting into fist fights with the dog. It's not about them. It's because you're not living in purpose. It's because God gave you a dream and you let it go somewhere along the line because you got so focused on the outward veneer of a good career. But you know what a good career is? It's a career that is aligned with the calling of God. I don't know another way to say it. And so I want to speak over your life in 2025 that you're going to realize that you weren't just born, you were sent. See, when you think like that, your mind shifts. So then you start thinking, maybe I didn't just get into that school because I was so smart and I wrote a great essay. Maybe I was divinely positioned for such a time as this. Hold on. I need to come closer. Maybe I didn't get the job just because I'm so suchy much and I've got such great connections on LinkedIn, but maybe I was providentially being positioned for God's great work. Have you considered that? Have you considered that the title you have, the position you have, the place and status you have in life is not all because you manifested it and because you worked so hard and because you pulled yourself up from your own bootstraps, whatever that means. But maybe it is because there has been a hand on your life. Maybe it is because though you have a plan, God has a purpose. Maybe it is because there is something bigger that is happening in the continuum of human events. And when you start to think about maybe my idea for a business is God's purpose on the earth. See, I start thinking differently about it. I start thinking differently about the fact that I was born at this time in this season. If I start thinking like that, then I can start moving my career into a place of alignment and submission. This is the word for you. Submission unto the divine. Submission. It doesn't mean I don't have a mission. It just means that my mission is subbed. It is under. It is submissive. That means that I have a mission, but it is under the principal mission. See, there's a scripture that says that many are the plans in the heart of a man, but it is the purpose of God that'll stand. I'm not against your plans. I just feel like if your plans come into conflict with God's purpose, that's the issue. So what I'm asking you is, have you come to a space, an acknowledgement in your life to say, everything I have in my career is because God gave it to me? If God didn't give it, I wouldn't have it. I'm talking this morning. If God didn't give me the health, I wouldn't be able to do well at the job. And I believe, and I'm getting off, but I need to say this. I believe that what we're seeing across America is the rising up of faith leaders in so-called secular spaces. This is happening. I think about the CEO of Domino's who at the height of the pandemic, when they had an all hands meeting and everything was happening, people didn't know what was going, really what was going to go down. And the chief franchisees were all in the meeting, and it's all, it's virtual, all hands globally. 1,500 some people on the call, franchisees, board leaders, investors, lenders, and somebody tells me the CEO said, I'm going to speak a word of prayer. I'm gonna speak a word of prayer. I know because we're in uncertain times. I know it's politically convenient to take prayer out of schools, but when stuff happens, the first place we go to is God. Isn't that funny how we do that? I'm not gonna touch that today. So I'm speaking that there's going to be a spiritual revival over your career, and when you have a spiritual revival in your life and an eye toward your career, everything else is going to fall into place. You're going to move into ease. There's been something you've been efforting that now at the moment of your commitment to use your career as a vehicle to live out your calling, that efforting is going to turn into ease. I'm telling you, there's been things that have been held up. See, you think it's been held up because it's a natural thing, but we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, people. Ugh. We're not wrestling against flesh and blood. You're not wrestling against policies. You're not wrestling against global economic macro forces. Yes, these things are impinging on you, perhaps, but what you're wrestling against powers and principalities, you're wrestling against spiritual authorities. You're wrestling against and a force that wants to keep people from knowing their worth, a force that wants to keep people tied up in the prison of consumerism. You're fighting against an effort to keep you from knowing who you really are and using your real power. And you're fighting against bondage at the highest level. Bondage that told you you can't leave that job and go into the real career that you have in your heart to do, because how are you going to pay your bills? And so I speak over your life that what was efforting will become ease when you have a change in mindset. There's nothing more powerful than a change in mind. You need to shift your mind. God is your source, not your job. Listen to me, not your job. God is your source. God is your source. God is your source. God is your source. And when you recognize that God is your source, nothing that happens on the outside can shift you. I don't care who's elected to the White House. You hear what I'm saying? I don't care who has a majority in Congress. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't care who's sitting in the seat of chairman of Federal Reserve. My personal net worth is not tied in the world's economy. It's tied in the favor of God. See, I gotta go, but I'm feeling as if that there are people that are hearing and you're listening, trying to figure out you're struggling betwixt and between the call of God and the cares of this world. You're not the only one. You're not the only one. You see what you feel like you should be doing with your life, but there's a voice in your mind that says you're never going to make any money that way. And now you've got bills. You probably have some level of debt. And fear told you you can't step out in faith and do what you've been called to do because you've got bills, you've got debt. And I'm here to tell you that you are going to have, I didn't even plan to say this. I guess I'm just flowing now. You are going to have a reimagining of who your source really is. I'm telling you, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. You're going to have to reimagine your source. The writer said, my help comes from the maker of heaven and earth. I know where my help comes from. Do you know where your help comes from? Do you know where your help comes from? Do you know where your help comes from? I'm not against politics. I'm just concerned about people that get so tied up into the fact that you really think your future is tied up on who lives on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Like, come on. Come on now. No. We don't believe in black magic. We don't believe in looking at how the cookie crumbles. No, our success is systematic. Our success comes from God. God is my source. God's my source. God's been my source for 39 years. I'm not telling you something I read in a book. God has been my source. God has been my source when I couldn't work as a lawyer for a period of time. God was my source. God was my source when for 3 years I had no income. God was my source when I was trying to figure out how to rebuild my career. God was my source. God was the one that took care of me. God was the one that opened up doors for me. God was the one that gave me favor. God was the one that brought me into countries and lands and nations and principalities with rulers and open door. God did it. God was the one that did it for me. People say, how you there and you meeting this person, you go on this. God did it. There's favor that's over my life because I recognize my life is not my own. You see? You see, there's a power that we live in when we have an understanding that God is my source. I'm not talking about religion now, I'm talking relationship. That's been the problem. You have religion, but you don't have relationship. You've got rituals and rites. I never use the word church because the church is in you. That's the real church, the ecclesia, the called out ones. You were called to be a church. Huh? At your job, on your neighborhood, on the Zoom call. You were called to be a light to the world. You were called to be a city set on the hill. You were called to be in the salt to the earth. This is what you were. You were called to do this. Somehow we got on earth and we forgot. Why does it say, why do you think the scriptures always telling us, I will remember? Because somehow on earth, we forgot our members. So we have to be remembered. Now, I don't want to say R-E-M-E-M-B-E-R. No. R-E-M-E-M-B-E-R. Because we were membered. We were whole. And then we came to earth and we had to learn poverty. We learned lack. We learned scarcity. We learned not to share. You didn't come here like that. You didn't come here. You came believing in the magic of who you are. You came believing you were great. Somehow people talked you out of it. They told you, no, that was only certain families or people that had a certain skin color. And you believed it. First, they told it to you. Now you tell it to yourself. And so we came perfect. We came with an understanding of our divinity. We came believing that we were special. We came happy. You don't meet no negative baby. You don't meet a cynical baby. You will never be in a room and you give your dream, say, I think I want to do this. And it's the 2-year-old that no way you can do it. No, but we learn it. We learn it over time. We learn over time. Somehow we come into this belief that I'm not as special as the next person. So we hide what makes us great and we try to fit in. So we get dismembered in the place we were supposed to experience the fullness of God. So why do you think we have to remember? Because there was a membering that we forgot. So we've got to be remembered. We have to be it's already been done. The work is already finished. The victory's already been won. But we've got to walk into the finished work. You see, we've got to walk into it. And one of the things that happened during the Industrial Revolution is that there became a focus on careers instead of a focus on gifts. So we moved from careers that were centered around giftings. You didn't even call it a career. People were entrepreneurial. Many times families had trades that they were involved in. That's biblical. We see since Genesis. That's biblical. When we're told about, I think it's Zipporah was the father of all those who have the lyre and heart. When Aaron was given the ark, it wasn't just Aaron, his lineage was given the ark. There's assignments for families. But with the Industrial Revolution and the focus on factories and the focus on just getting people to fill the work that needed to be done, people left their family farm, people left their place of gifting, people left the center of the home, and they went into the cities to try to get a job. Now, I'm not against the job. My problem is when your job conflicts with God's calling on your life. That's the problem. That's the anger. So you have more paper dollars, but you don't have more peace. You see, and you don't have more prosperity. And you don't have more passion for what you do. So you're angry because you got the money, but you realize when you got there, there was no there because you forgot the purpose. You need to be remembered. You need to be remembered that there was a reason you came to earth, and it wasn't just to build an IRA. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't just to accrue paper dollars. I think it was Jesus who said, life is not in the abundance of things. We're not against having abundance of things. I just need you to know that the identification of your life's worth can't be about the abundance of things. Do you have a career that speaks to the fullness of your calling? Do you know your calling? Or are you just working? You're just working. You're just trying to pay bills. Do you know your calling? Do you know your calling? I spend time talking with professionals about that. Do you know your calling? Executives, you 30 years in corporate America. Has anybody ever talked to you about calling though? Huh? So you're so let me get this straight. You're exchanging your time, which is the most valuable thing you can exchange. Your time. You'll never get this back. Your time. You're exchanging your time. What are you getting in return? What are you becoming in return? When your clock gets clicked, and everybody's clock will get clicked, and there will come a time when we got to give an account for all of the moments we had. What are you going to say? What you going to say? What will you say to the number one question, which is, what did you do with the talents that I gave you? You need to be remembered. You had a mission. You had a mission before you had a resume. You had a mission before you had a 5-year plan. You had a mission. Hold on, I'm gonna go somewhere. You had a mission before you were born. Because it was not by accident. I'm gonna go on that note, but 2025 is your year. If you step out to say, I want my career to reflect the magnanimity of my calling. And if you believe this, I stand in agreement with you. And I stand in agreement that this will be your most productive, most profitable, most prosperous year you've ever lived on earth. Because the two most important days on anybody's life, two most important days in anybody's life, as it has been said, is one, the day you were born, and two, the day when you realize why you were born. I love you. I love you. Stay blessed, stay prosperous, stay focused. And if you want more of this, I'm doing teachings like this all over the world. Stay connected with me on darrellbennett.com. Big things are happening. God bless you. God bless you, Facebook. No, excuse me, YouTube. I love you.